What's up, on my Power Riders crew? Looky here. We got a quick disconnect up here, so we got our onboard air plumbed up. Got our air hoses running up the manifold. This is going to the back, and then we have the one right here going to the compressor. Want to see how I did it? Let's roll. So today we're starting the plumbing of our onboard air compressor project. Now, the past videos I showed how to drill and tap this piece right here to put your airline fittings in, and the video after that, how to convert your compressor so you do not need an external oil source. Then the video after that was going to be setting up the air manifold. Now we're ready for the plumbing. We'll get that done today. Next video will be doing the electrical. Electrical meaning you got to have a way to turn on the compressor, and that's what this right here does. This is the pressure switch. It kicks on at 90 psi, kicks off at 125, but we're also going to run a switch inside the cab so we can control it from inside there. So as you can see, I've already got this right here started, and I'm about to put my 90-degree fitting in, kick it downward that way, and which is right there. But I got to get my flaring tool and flare that out for it to fit inside there. So yep, that's what we're doing next. So the 90-degree fitting that I'm using is a 1/4 inch MPT here and a flare fitting here. And well, the reason I'm using these fittings is, well, because Dad had a bunch of them, and those short section of soft copper. But the reason I'm using the soft copper, let's talk about that. Compressors generate heat, because when they're compressing all that air, you got to get heat coming off here. Whenever it generates that heat, it's going to go through that soft copper, and by the time it reaches down here, maybe it'll drop a few degrees or something like that before it gets to the soft rubber fitting, soft rubber hose, and when I bring it up to here. So let's get our thread tape put on our 90-degree fitting and get that screwed in. And on the past videos, I showed you guys how to wrap your threads, but that's the past videos. You guys want to watch it, but I'll show you again right here. This is the 1/4 inch MPT. This is the flare fitting, as you can see right there. We'll have to cut my copper to the correct length and flare the copper to go up on this. Right here, this is going to screw directly into the back of that fitting on the compressor, so we want our thread tape. And you want to wrap it in a way that don't overlap the end of it, for one. As you screw it in, it's actually screwing the thread tape down to the threads. There is a right way and a wrong way to do this. Pull, stretch, so it goes down inside the threads. And notice when I screw this in, look how this is coming out like that. When I screw this into the part, see how it lays it down? If you roll the tape the other way, it'll tend to want to force the tape off the threads instead of screwing it into the threads. Rotate this thing around until it's about 90 degrees, pointing straight down. And try not to get on your threads here with your wrench. If I actually had a wrench on that, it'd be a lot better, but hey, it is what it is. Here we go. Now I got to size my copper up, cut and flare. So I cut that end off, it cleaned up the end right there, and it butts up against this right here. Of course, I still got to flare. I got to put the fitting on, then flare it. And my goal is, which is not quite in line right now, is to come pretty much flush with the compressor right there, and I have a what's called bulkhead fitting that's gonna hold that in position down there, which you'll see that when I get to that part. But yeah, I've got that trimmed off right there about where I want it, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the fitting, then flare it. Now always be sure to slide your fitting on first. There we go. After I took the tubing cutter and cut that, the tubing cutter tends to compress the end of soft copper quite a bit. So I just took the back end of my file right here, stuck it inside there and turned it and deburred the end of it, which I need to file this off right here. But it'll kind of expand that back out a little bit, and whenever you go through your flare tool, it'll flare it properly. So I'm going to file those burrs off the end right there, then we'll flare it out. So we've got that all flared up, and it's just kind of sitting there loose right now because I got to figure out where to put my fitting here, because now I'm going to have a piece of angle iron, flat stock or something. I'm going to bolt in right here. I'm going to tap that hole right there for a bolt. Come across here. Tilt my camera down a little bit for you. And then that'll tell me where I need to cut this at. I need to rotate this fitting back up just a few degrees. Now somebody's going to say, hey, you didn't show me how to flare the line. I've got another video where I did nothing but flare, do a single flare and double flare. So I'll link that up so you guys can check out how to flare tubing. So let me rotate this back a little bit. About right on there. And that puts my line here. I got nothing that's hitting on. Of course, I've still got this loose. That's the reason it moves so easy. See, just loose. So it's going to sit by like that. But this will give it the air. I'm going to tie my hoses together here, get my spark plug wires off of it and stuff, so nothing's touching because I'm just picky like that. But that'll give the air a chance to hit this copper. Copper dissipates heat. It'll give it a chance to cool down some before it hits the soft line here, coming up to the air manifold. Okay, I trimmed it back quite a bit, and I marked it in long because I want to work my way back to the finished length. And you see right there, it's quite a bit too long, because this is actually going to be mounted under like that, but we'll get to that part in a bit. So you take your flat edge, you come across like this. You want this surface here, the flat edge, to be on this side of the bulkhead fitting, right here, because once you tighten everything down, that's going to be its final resting place. Then you put your barb fitting in here to run it up to this. So it looks to me like I need to take, I'll use it as a guide, right there. Looks like I need to take right at a ½ inch off. But again, I won't take a ½ inch. I'm going to take probably 3/8 or so and work my way back to it, because one thing you got to take into consideration when you're flaring tubing, right now this tube is not flared. Whenever you go to flare this out, doing a single flare, now a double flare, but a single flare, you're going to, about a 1/4 inch, you're going to lose in length. So I'm going to trim about 3/8 of an inch off this. I'll test fit this again and say yes, or I'm going to say no. We'll find out here in a moment. Okay, so I trimmed a little extra off, and it's about where I want it now. And I've got to slid back on. You can see it's sitting flush with that, but I've got a little bit of flex in this line right here. I can pull it forward, backward, whatever I need. But one thing I need to watch out for is where this tapered edge on this fitting here doesn't hit the bottom of the compressor. So again, I can move this back a little bit, but this angle iron here, I'm not going to mount it this way. It's actually going to be mounted in this way. So the problem with that is angle iron has a radius right here. So I'm going to space it up off this right here out a little bit to get it out of that radius, which again will bring the surface this way a little bit. But now I've got it in the ballpark what I need. This line is going to flex for me just enough to give me what I need. So at that point, I'm going to cut this off where I need it and start trimming it up to make it fit up underneath here. Now the things I've got to accommodate for is this hole right here. You know, it's just a casting right there. So I can probably tap that 1/4 20, I'm guessing. And I'm only going to use one bolt because I can use the bottom flange of this, which is why I'm using an angle, to rest up against the bottom of this to prevent it from moving up and down. So also the alternator casting here, I may have to do a little bit of trim off the bottom so it clears the alternator, allowing it to not hit the casting or allowing it to flex if I ever have to change anything. So I'm going to figure all that mess out. First of all, I need to figure out my length, so I'm going to cut in about a marker. There's my hole, giving me plenty to bolt onto to come past that, so I'm going to spitball it at about right there. And it fell all the way down to the driveway. Good. And just for the record, Porter bands are awesome. I should have been using this thing a long time ago. So here's what we got. I went ahead and flared that line. It's hanging kind of loose right now. And I found me a self-tapping screw that went up in that pretty good. I made this hole right here low enough or positioned properly to where when it's bolted in place, this flat edge here is resting against the bottom of this, preventing it from wobbling up and down like this. It's working out pretty well. But I left enough of that flange there that it came out. Remember a moment ago I was talking about that radius right there? That I have to space it out a little bit to ensure that that flat part of the flange right there is sitting against the bottom of that so it doesn't rotate. So spacing it, I just use that little nut right there, a little 5/16 nut, and the self-tapping screw goes through all that, screws into that, and after I've got that flared, all I gotta do is screw it up on the end of that, and we're good to go. I got my barb fitting put in, I've already got my thread tape, seal tape put in everywhere. We're good, so I'm gonna get this mounted in, and we'll just have to get a short section of soft hose to go from here to there. And this port right here, I plugged it off for the moment because what this is going to be is running inside the cab. I'm going to have an air pressure gauge inside the Jeep itself, so I can, if I turn it on, I can see, how much air pressure I got while I'm sitting in the driver's seat. So the back is already done. We got to run the rubber back there. The front needs to be done. So I've already drilled the location of where I put my port, my quick connect here. My quick connect's gonna go right there. So let me go get my bracket because I made it last night. So last night when I was fabricating this bracket, I used an 1/8 inch drill bit. Put a hole there, I put a hole there. I always like doing my holes in a bracket like this, doing them diagonally. Then I come over here and says, yeah, so I want it about right there because it's gonna be tucked in behind my winch, protected so the air nozzle doesn't get hit or anything, or the quick disconnect. So using that same 1/8 inch bit, I come through the hole that already existed in the bracket and drilled into the bumper, just marked my centers of where those holes are going to be lined up at. Then I went ahead and drilled the 1/8 inch hole all the way through, and I moved the bracket out of the way, drilled the whole 1/8 inch through, and now I've got my 7/32 drill bit here. Went ahead and drilled that all the way through, so now I'm going to take a 1/4-20 tap and tap his holes right here for 1/4-20 bolts. So when you have situations like this where you don't have a whole lot of room to get your tap handled inside there, because you got that little arm that sticks out, and it's, here I've got it off mine right now, but boom, it's gonna be on the way. You got gets the grill here. It's just a total pain, people. Ta-da! See, I've got the handle pulled out of it, but what's the big deal? Right there, you can use a ratchet extension right into the back of it right there, get above the winch, and be able to tap that hole. These things right here are absolute lifesavers for whenever you're in a tight area and need to tap a hole somewhere. So I suggest you pick one up. I'll drop a link down below for you guys to pick one up if you want. So I'm going to tap out for 1/4-20. I'll be right back. Now these taps I use, they have like a self-centering tip on them. So basically you take that tip after drilling the proper size hole and just kind of lob it in there. It centers itself up, you just kind of let it go, and it positions the tap exactly where it needs to be. Then we take our handy dandy tap socket here, snap our extension into it, and get it straight as possible. Start making your cuts. But you see how it works, but I want to use both hands to keep this thing stable. So I'm going to kind of put the camera down and finish this up. Our bracket is now securely mounted, and here's what we're going to use for quick connect up front. This is what you call a bulkhead fitting, and I've already got a barb fitting screwed into it. This is a bulkhead, a longer version of a bulkhead fitting. What a bulkhead fitting does, it allows you, like this hole right here, I can run this through there, tighten this up, and this will hold that securely in place, so you can screw in your quick connect and your barb fitting to connect your hose, and for your quick connect, air up your tires, tools, whatever the case may be. So what's going to happen is this bulkhead connector right here gets put into the bracket. We're going to tighten that down good. I've already got the barb fitting in because the nut will go over top the barb fitting, so I did that so I wouldn't have to be all cramped up down there. Then I'm going to screw this in. To be honest with you, I already had this screwed in with the thread seal tape and all that on it, but I was kind of like, hey, I need to show my fans here how to properly do things, so I took this back out, cleaned all the thread seal tape off. Now you got different styles of these quick connects, male, female. This one being a male, because otherwise if you use a female quick connect, you'd have to have the union or the coupling, your threads inside there, the threads inside there, and it pushes it outward by another 1/8 of an inch or maybe even 3/16 or so. Not a big critical issue, but I wanted the male to go inside there, thread it in to make it as flush as possible against the bulkhead connector. So I'm going to put this right here in place. And instead of one washer, I'm going to go ahead and use two, because whenever I used my hole saw bit on this thing right here, the drill that I used had the shaft was bent on it, and it cut that hole a little bit bigger than it needed to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and run 2 washers on both sides to make sure it stays secure. And so anyway, I'm gonna put this in, be right back. So I was gonna show you guys how to make crimped ends like this right here, using those right there and this little tool right here. But here's my problem. Those right there won't go over that hose. So I guess I'm going old school. Hose clamps it is. But I will get some more of these right here, because all up here around the manifold and stuff, I don't want hose clamps up here, simply because, you know, if I get over here working something like that and you snag a hose clamp, they'll lay your hand open quick. So I would like to have, you know, nice clean connections up here to prevent, you know, anybody getting cut, me or anyone else that's working on my rig. So yeah, there's that. Go old school, hose clamps for now. Front quick connect is connected right there and right there, and I made sure all my hoses wasn't touching any kind of sharp edges or anything like that to prevent cuts and popping airlines. So that one's in place. Now I'm going to do my little short section right here, connect that, then get my creeper. We're going under the Jeep and run the airline all the way back. Soft line connected from the compressor to the manifold and filter. I need to find my filter that I had right there, and I need to go get me a belt so I can actually make the thing run. It look all pretty sitting there, but can't do nothing with it. So now let's run the line back to the tank. Okay, the rear is done, so tied on right there. It drops down that way. Let's go under and check out the rest. Right there's that. Tied it onto the wiring harness and all that good fun stuff right there. But when I tied it on there, I pushed a little bit of the slack back this way, forcing the hose to tuck inside the frame right here so it wouldn't be next to the engine. I kept it above the transmission, stuff like that. It's not laying on the skid plate. Go back here. You see right there, went through that frame hole right there, zip tied up there. It's above the heat shield where your muffler is right here. There's a heat shield right there. I've got it tucked in above that right there. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up or not, but there's a dimple in a heat shield right there. There's a bolt right there. That bolt, the hose is tucked in behind that bolt right there, and the heat shield will bent it back up in place. It's going to hold it in place right there. So then it comes out above the muffler mount, the muffler hanger, and right here is another piece of the body. This, you got this brace comes here, bolts in here, and so I took a zip tie around that right there, holding it up there, and went above the gas tank, back that way. And as you can see, coming above the gas tank and ties in right here. And I put 2 hose clamps on it because it's tightening this right here up. I felt it slip and I didn't want to take it back off, so I put another one right here. But whenever you double stack clamps, what you need to do is, see how I got the worm screw up top here, then the worm screw at the bottom. You want to alternate where the worm screws are. So that should be good to go. So what do we have left before we can fire this bad boy up? I gotta go get my belt. And I'm going to go do that here in just a few minutes, because I need to be getting ready to go to work here in a little bit. Okay, we got this baby all plumbed up, and actually I've got my belt on too, and I've actually been running for a little while, but I just happened to start editing the video and realized that I didn't shoot an exit. So whenever you guys put your hoses on, if you use regular hose clamps like this, which I have not done this yet, I need to wrap tape around these, like a lot of electrical tape, to prevent anybody from sticking their hands inside there and that hose clamp cut the crap out of you. Best thing to use is those little barrels that goes around that, and I'll put them in later. But as of right now, we're just going to run the hose clamps, and I'll tape them up eventually, or I'll just be careful, or I'll just fuss when I cut myself, whichever comes first. That's right, I said I had it working, and I know someone out there said, well, if you do, let's see a little demonstration. We can do that. Watch this. As you can see, our pressure gauge is down at 0 right now, so what I'm about to do is fire this baby up. I'll throw the switch, turn on the compressor, and watch her pump it up. Got her started up and running. Let's turn on the air compressor. shuts off at 125. Now the next video in this series is going to be how to wire in the electrical. It's pretty simple actually. So everyone, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, leave us cool comments down below. Appreciate you hanging out. Peace. Later y'all.